welcome to TV Toastmasters Club 9523. Thanks to our studio audience, as well as those of you in our TV audience, for joining us this morning. We meet on the first Thursday and third Saturday of every month at the beautiful Henderson Town Center, located at 7850 5 Mile Road in Anderson, Ohio. Please join us if you're interested in improving your speaking skills, in honing your leadership skills, or in just having fun. We have a lot of fun in this meeting. I'd like to welcome our guests today, who are actually our newest member, Ron Fidella. So welcome, Ron, and thank you. As well as our talented camera people, Stacy King and Vic King. Thank you. And it is a great almost summer day today. We're about a couple days away from summer, but it feels like summer out there. It's beautiful. And it is a fantastic way to start out the weekend with a fantastic Toastmasters meeting and a full agenda. So with that, I'd like to welcome our Toastmaster for today. He's a DTM. Please welcome Rick Davis. I think we need a little more energy. Can we hear for Darren? It is Saturday morning, but that's no excuse. Our next thing we have to do is to bring up our word master. Rita Ferguson has a word for us today. Rita?
Thank you, Rick. And yes, I certainly do have a word today. The word of the day is a very interesting word, and I'm going to let Stacy have a minute to zero in on this. It is segue. It's both an interesting word and an important concept for anybody who's speaking or anybody who's writing. It's interesting because, first of all, it is not spelled the way it sounds, or it does not sound the way it's spelled. Regardless, I have seen people erroneously spell this S-E-G-W-A-Y. But this is the correct spelling, S-E-G-U-E, segue. It's both a verb and a noun. So as a verb, we talk about segueing into another section of our meeting, for example. And as a noun, it is the segue. It is the transition itself. I'm not going to tape it, but I am going to leave it here on the top of the lectern to remind you to use it. It's an interesting concept because as we write our speeches, we often have to write segues into our speech. So today, as we use the word, because I'm going to either ask you to use the word or use the concept. So either use a good segue or use the word segue, and we'll put action into our speech. Mr. Toastmaster Rick.
Thank you, Rita. And of course, as the Toastmaster today, I am the master of segue. That's my role in the club today. The next order of business is Tabletopics. If you're an experienced Toastmaster, you look forward to Tabletopics. If you're a new Toastmaster, you dread Tabletopics. But our Tabletopics master today is Kormelink. Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, our most welcome guests, now members, and our camera people, and to the audience at home. This is the fun part of the meeting for me. Actually, it's my job to catch you off guard and give you a question, not of your choosing, but you get to practice the skill of thinking quickly, listening intently, and answering effectively. So when your boss asks you that question, you no longer have brain freeze. You're able to think of a good reply. I have been dealing with perfectionism. So today we will be talking about perfectionism because I had an email the other day from someone, and I love the quote. It's about, and I didn't write the guy's name, and of course I don't remember at the moment, but it was Briggs. He was a camera person, a photographer for National Geographic for 24 years. And you know how hard it is to throw away the National Geographic because of his fantastic pictures. He takes thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, and then he gets that one perfect shot. Well, in my life, perfectionism it keeps you from taking action. And I learned that generals, they have to go with 80%. When they're 80% ready, they have to go. Otherwise, they would never go into battle. They would never win any wars. So I have some quotes here, and I'm going to give the quote, and you can come up and let us know if you agree or disagree with it and how it might affect you. And my first quote today is, excellence is risk. Perfection is fear. Whether you want to strive for perfectionism or for excellence and progress. My first person today is going to be Don Wess. Even though you are going to be giving a speech, I still want to hear you on your viewpoint, whether perfectionism is fear and excellence is risk, and try to segue into your reply.
Okay, thank you. Okay, excellence is risk, and perfectionism is fear. I have that right. Excellence is risk-taking because it calls forth something from ourselves, something that we have to give to others. Perfectionism is a more concern, not so much for relationships, but for ourselves. So we want to focus more on what we do rather than on how we relate. So that, to me, seems the essence of the topic for today. And I hope I made that clear enough, but I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. It gave me a lot of food for thought. My second question is that excellence is powerful, perfection is anger and frustration. Ron, I'd like to hear your viewpoints. Excellence is powerful, perfection is anger and frustration.
Thank you very much. Excellence is powerful, perfection is anger and frustration. Fighting through your anger and your frustration is actually powerful because none of us can be guaranteed of excellence. I mean, the fact is many of us sit back and fail to take the risks that we might need to take, fearing that we're not going to meet up, that we might be inadequate. To a certain extent, we become aware of the fact that maybe we're shying away from those things we would like to pursue, and within us that might generate a certain amount of anger. It comes out in many different ways. Giving into that, I believe that we never achieve the degree of excellence that we might in given areas of our life. So in some ways, I believe they're related. None of us can be guaranteed of excellence unless we strive for things that maybe we don't think we're capable of. Many of us deal with anger, often of our own generation, by recognizing that we fail to take the risks that we would like to take. So to me, they're combined, and I believe that it's a challenge that each of us face at one time or another. Thank you very much.
You never leave the lecture unattended. You always turn it back over. Thank you very much. The next one is excellence is confidence, perfection is doubt. This is a new thought to me. Let's hear your thoughts on that. Eva?
So again, it was excellence is
confidence, perfection is doubt.
Wow, that's a tough one, right? Excellence would be confidence, I guess, because you're feeling really proficient at what you're doing. So to me, excellence is that you're always striving to get better. So there would be confidence around that. But perfectionism is doubt because you always feel that you've never gotten to the place where you're good enough to then be able to give your opinion or do whatever it is that you're looking to do. So I could see where that would make sense. So I'm not feeling very excellent right now at my tabletop. But yes, I could see where excellence would actually be confidence And I really don't know what else to say around that. So thank you. Sorry.
I found these hard to adjust to. My last topic today is excellence is journey, perfection is destination. Rick Davis, you're so great at giving table topics, I'd like to hear you answer one. And use the word of the day.
Use the word of the day. Segue, 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 segue. Segue, segue, segue. How many I got up to, Rita? Pioneer Toastmasters Club says that they are the world's most nearly perfect Toastmaster club. And, of course, you can never be absolutely perfect. In every Toastmaster meeting, something goes awry or something goes a little nuts or whatever. So you're always striving for perfection, but excellence, I think, is a better thing to strive for. We don't necessarily want all the pieces to fit together and so that it's perfect, and we look at our agenda and say, oh, yes, everything got done exactly the way it's supposed to. What we want is something that's excellent, that maybe evolves out of the meeting. I think that's a better way to think about it. And so I think TV Toastmasters should always be striving for excellence and not necessarily striving for perfection.
Thank you very much, Rick. And you have a great answer there. That concludes my table topics, and I will return control to our Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you, Carol. Those are difficult things. All right, so the next part of the meeting is our speakers. We have 3 great speakers today, and I'm looking forward to hearing their speeches. But the first speech is by one of our newer members, and he is going to give his icebreaker speech today, which is always a lot of fun to introduce themselves to the club and for the club to find out more about them. And Charlie Lobosco is going to give a speech today, his icebreaker speech, I Am Who I Am. Charlie?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I want to say that I enjoy working out here with the Toastmasters because the only reason why we're here is to invest in ourselves, and the risks, the benefits far outweigh the risks. So thank you very much. I'm Charlie Lobosco. I'm a corporate technology executive at Citigroup. I'm married to Eva. We live in Columbia, Tusculum. But I'm also the author of this book, Care, which is the courage to take action relevant to everyone. Building a better workplace starts with you. And also the Care certification in the workplace seminar, which I'm very proud of. I'm also the host of a weekly radio show, Corporate Talk, where we promote the concept of the book, and we leave no stone unturned to see how we, as even one person, can make a difference in the workplace. So, I'm doing a lot, but why? Who am I? Where am I from? And how did I get here? How have I segued to this point? Okay. I was born and raised in New York City, starting out in the 50s, and in my book, my memories take me back to the 1950s. They're all black and white, and some of my memories are of course, Mickey, Willie, and the Duke. The waning years of polio, unfortunately, and also the Yankees. As I moved into the 60s, I turned into color, my memories. And, we start out with the Magnificent Seven and, of course, more Yankees, and ending up with, of course, Woodstock. When it came time for me to go to college, at that time, my uncles and my tough family would say, kids go to college today to become stupid, to do drugs and to get stupid. So they kind of protested the protest of the 60s, and my college became computer school, a trade school. So, if I go back to New York City in 1973, In my book, I say the village was cruising, the Yankees were losing, and I was a computer operator for XL Plastics, which was my first job in corporate. So, you know, as my career progressed through the years, I learned many things. The various jobs that I had became my school, and the various lines of business of the corporations that I worked in was the curriculum. So now, after 40 years, almost 40 years, I can confidently say that, for me, learning in the face of adversity worked better than learning from a university. In 2006, my company relocated me to Cincinnati. So here I am, born and raised in New York City, and now living in Cincinnati. And you know, it's been 6 years, and I can say it has been a learning experience, almost a history lesson. But when I first moved here, I was all alone. I had no mentors; they were all in New York. I had no teammates; everybody was new. There was no Yankees. I was spiraling downward, and I was in a little bit of trouble. So, you know, I blinked, and here I am in my 50s. What do I do now? I managed to go internal, and I reassessed and came out with the book because I really did have an interesting journey along the way, and I really have accomplished a lot, and for that I'm proud. But in my research, I came across 5 guys I call my virtual mentors, and they're forefathers, Samuel Adams, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, Paul Revere, and Big George, my guy. And what I learned about these guys was they shared a common motive, and their motive was they had the courage to take action relevant to everyone. And in their case, it led to the birth of a nation. So an aha moment for me was, if these guys, if this motive of care can actually raise a nation, imagine what it could do in the workplace. So that became my mission. This is my mission now. I'm giving back. I'm speaking. I'm sharing. I'm trying to build a better workplace. In my 40 years in corporate, I've seen enormous, groundbreaking, off-the-charts change in technology, but not enough change in our behavior, which at times can be toxic. So my mission going forward is to build the care network, create a care revolution, and make the workplace better for all of us. Our companies need us now more than ever. And, you know, a lot of us need the work, so it's a good match, right? So it started with I, then became we, and then we're a team, so we can make a difference together. And just remember that care is the courage to take action relevant to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. We'll be right back.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well. There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease...
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard. I have a dream. It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
We're back, and we're going to segue into the next speech. Our next speaker is Don Wess. He's a long-time Toastmaster in the TV Toastmasters Club. And his speech, the name of his speech today is Obsessionality. Speech number 10, Don Wess. One of the
characters in the Star Trek series said to Dr. Spock, I have this human thing called adrenaline. And Dr. Spock replied, that sounds very inconvenient. Perhaps you should have it removed. I think the adrenaline represents our emotions, our feelings. And the tendency here is to be, or at least in Dr. Spock's mind, excuse me, to be more like him, to be the operator of a spaceship, which is very technical, emotionless, hopefully, in order to get things right. But there needs to be also, because we're human, that an expression of our emotions, and to resist pushing them down, pushing them under, repressing them, or keeping them hidden, which is sometimes a tendency. When we become afraid of our emotions, and this is kind of a segue from our table topics, when we become afraid of our emotions, we tend to have them affect us in a way that is not productive or not helpful in our relationships. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about obsessive compulsive problems. And this book here is filled with problems that human beings have. Criteria for diagnosis of different problems. And I'm sure each of us can find something in here that applies to us personally. Today I wanted to talk about obsessive compulsive problems, and some of the characteristics of these are that we have thoughts that are irresistible. They just come to us and we can't do anything about it. They're recurrent. They keep coming back to us. And they're intrusive. They're something that affects in a negative way our relationships and the expression of our person, ourselves, our true selves. And then there's another aspect of it that involves actions. So we tend to repeat irrational and ritualistic type activity. I was watching a program last night, Mr. Monk, and he was writing checks. I don't know if you've seen this before, but he was writing the check to somebody, and he kept getting it wrong. It wasn't exactly right. It wasn't perfect, so he kept throwing them away and starting over again. This is kind of an obsessive type behavior. It's an exaggeration, just like his character is a caricature of obsessive compulsive problems, but we tend to exaggerate a description of these problems in order to, I guess, make our speech more appealing or more exciting or more memorable, just as they do on television. So checking and cleaning is a particular characteristic. Checking things, rechecking things, and doing things over and over again, and cleaning, washing hands, and doing it a number of times. There's another aspect of obsessive compulsive behavior that concerns more of the person, personality difficulties, preoccupation with details, over preoccupation with details. It's a neglect of relationships. It's like form over substance. So a person could spend hours setting the table for a company that's coming and make sure everything is perfect, and then when the company comes, to pay little attention to them. Tight control over emotions, that we don't want to let these emotions get out because for some reason we've suppressed them or repressed them and have difficulty with them later on. So these are some of the qualities and some of the specific defenses that you can see in people with these problems, or to one degree or another. There's all different degrees of these problems, is intellectualization. They live in their minds instead of their hearts. Isolation of affect. They separate feelings from emotions. Reaction formations is when you substitute a positive feeling for a negative feeling. So you're feeling fear or you're feeling anger, and instead of doing that, you laugh or make fun of, try to make jokes or things like that. So this again, it shows a fear of emotional experiences. Doing and undoing. This happens often, but if it's too often or too consistent for any one person, like you criticize a person and then you say, "Oh, I was just kidding." That type of inter-reaction or relationship with people. So, as I mentioned, there are many different items in here, and this is just one or two of them. And we want to try to look at ourselves and to accept our feelings, accept our emotions, to make friends with our emotions, so that they do not interfere with our functionality or interface with the outside world, with our relationships. So those are some of the ideas that I wanted to present today to inspire you all, and hope I haven't put you to sleep. I noticed some of the TV people have turned to another station. And anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. That was a very interesting talk. We'll be right back after this message.
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Lichtner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
We're back. And for our third speech of the day, today, by the way, is the eve of Father's Day. And so I guess quite apropos, we have a speaker today who the title of his speech is The Secret of Fatherhood. Darren Henderson, The Secret of Fatherhood. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Author Kent Nerburn said, "Until you have a son of your own, you will never know the joy, the love beyond feeling that resonates in the heart of a father as he looks upon his son. You will never know the sense of honor that makes a man want to be more than he is and to pass something good and hopeful into the hands of his son. And you will never know the heartbreak of the fathers who are haunted by the personal demons that keep them from being the man they want their sons to be." Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially those of you in the audience who are fathers of young children, we are in the midst of a fatherhood crisis in this country. Only 1 in 3 kids live with their fathers in the same home. I'm not going to bore you with statistics as to the importance of fatherhood, but needless to say, children who have involved fathers are less likely to become involved in drugs or crime and tend to do better in school. In a nutshell, involved fathers greatly increase the chances that a child will be a successful, contributing member of society. So I don't think I need to convince you of the importance of fatherhood, but the big question is, how are good fathers created? It's not easy. I'm sure every new father looks into the eyes of their newborn child and promises to be a great father, to love, teach, and nurture them. But somewhere along the journey, some of us lose our way. Today, I want to share with the fathers of all young children the secret of fatherhood, which was told to me before I became a father and which I have found to be the truth now that I am a father. Now, this is appropriate whether you're in a two-parent household, a single parent, or have a joint custody arrangement. It works regardless of your living situation. But before I share that secret with you, I need you to do a few things for me first. So fathers, protect your children. A home should be a fortress where they feel safe, both emotionally and physically. Many of our children look for support outside the home, and unfortunately, that support is sometimes very negative and damaging. Fathers, teach your children. Kids are like sponges, and they learn much faster than adults. In my case, my 5-year-old son, I've tried to throw as many things at him as possible. And if you expose kids to a lot of different things, they will eventually find things that they like. At various stages, my son has been obsessed with animals, dinosaurs, cars, trains, Star Wars, geography, and now history. For example, Star Wars in and of itself is not a very educational topic. However, if it leads a kid to read book after book after book about Star Wars, that becomes fantastic. Fathers, be a good role model to your children. When I was young, my father never, ever missed a day of work. Regardless of how sick he felt, regardless of how much snow was on the ground, he went to work each and every day for 30 years. As an adult, in 20 years of work, I've missed less than 10 days for sickness or some other reason. Children pick up things from their parents, from their kids, that will model how they act as adults. So make sure the things that your kids see you do are positive and not negative influences. Fathers, help your children understand the answers to life's most difficult questions. Who is God? Why do people die? Why do some people like to hurt other people? These are questions that confound adults. So obviously, your children need help in understanding the answers to life's most difficult questions. Fathers, listen to your children. Have patience. What may seem like a trivial matter to you can mean the world to a 5-year-old. Regardless of your troubles, let your kids be kids. Soon enough, life's difficulties will intrude into their lives. So let them be innocent and unjaded for as long as they can possibly be. Fathers, love your kids and tell them every day how special they are. All the love you give them now may help them feel secure enough to make good decisions in the future. Now, if you promise to do all those things, I will finally share the real secret of fatherhood with you. The real secret of fatherhood is that if you teach, love, nurture, and protect your children, the love they give you in return will help to strengthen you so that you can withstand and surmount any challenge that life may put in your way. So, fathers, the real secret of fatherhood is that in the long run, you actually gain more or as much from being a good father as your children do. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Darren. That was a very interesting speech. Very useful information. We'll be back to do the evaluation portion of the meeting right after the break.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This farmer, he says, hey, hello, sorry. Let's see, seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
A doctor says, chicken says,
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken.
Welcome back. Now it's time to segue into the evaluation portion of the meeting, and for that part of the meeting, the general evaluator, Rick Barron, will be in charge. Rick?
Thank you, Rick, for that segue. As the general evaluator, I lead a big team of individuals who provide one of the most important roles within Toastmasters, and that is to provide constructive feedback to the people who are up here. It's one thing to come up here, embrace the lectern, give your speech, and walk away. But it's a completely different experience when then someone else can come up here and build and lift you up to show you all the things that you did well and to give you some ideas for improvement. My team starts off with Mary Arms, who will evaluate Charlie Lobosco's speech, I Am Who I Am. Mary Arms.
Well, I'm going to be honest. This is the first one I've ever gave as evaluation, so bear with me. Okay, Charlie, your speech was fantastic. I was really, really interested. It's the best speech. Compared to everyone else, it was a good speech, yes. Okay. Charlie, what was my question I was asked was, what strong points does the speaker always have? The strong points are that I observed that you are a very good speaker. Now, how did the audience get to know you? You brought your books and everything, and you let everyone know exactly, where you were from and what you do. Did the speech reflect adequate preparation? Yes, you did. I felt that you were very prepared and everything. Were you clear and was clearly and audibly? Yes. Did the speech have an opening, the body, and the conclusion? The body was his books. No, I think the opening was his books. The body was his life in New York and here in Cincinnati. And the conclusion was the combination of all of it. I'm supposed to comment on the speaker's use of note, Charlie. From where I was sitting, the only thing you had was your cards. But to me, it looked like you kept using the same card over and over. Oh, you sound like me. That's why I'm up here reading it like this, But it just looked like you were just turning it over and turning it over and turning it. Okay, well, at least I was right there. Okay. Could the speaker have done anything to improve the speech? I think you did everything just right. And how did you like the preparation? I enjoyed the preparation, and I am looking forward to your next speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. The icebreaker is probably the most difficult, easiest speech you will ever give, because really all you're doing is telling your story. But most people fear it because it's the first one. Our second evaluator is Sheila Mudd Baker, and she will be evaluating Don Wess's speech, Obsessionality. Sheila Mudd Baker.
Don's speech was project number 10 of the Communication Manual, which is to inspire the audience. Let me start this with telling you that Don doesn't know he was going to give a speech until he arrived in the studio. So I want everyone to know that Don was wonderful in coming up with a speech at the last second. His obsessionality related to a condition that we see on television with Monk, and Don used Monk, the character Monk, as an example of an obsessive-compulsive person. He also used a common character, Mr. Spock, to explain what life would be like from a non-obsessional viewpoint, a non-emotional viewpoint. So he used two characters to help us see what obsessionality would be, if there is such a word as obsessionality. I liked the understanding of the obsessive-compulsive disorder. I like the examples, such as checking and cleaning areas compulsively, which I don't have. I thought perhaps I was an obsessive-compulsive once, but then anybody who looks at my apartment knows that's not true. What Don did here was not so much inspire me, except to learn a little more about obsessive-compulsive disorder, but more educated me. He used his hands well, which was very important. He didn't do a lot of physical movement, which was good because otherwise we wouldn't be able to hear him. We would be able to see him, not able to hear him from here. His voice was very quiet. And normally when we give an inspirational speech, we use a little more vocal variety, a little more up and down and a little more. But I was still inspired to learn more about this disorder. So what I liked probably the most was the use of humor. This isn't a very funny topic, especially to people who have it, but it is very funny in that he used his humor to lighten up the topic. We love watching, or at least I do, I love watching Monk, so I'm laughing, but I also recognize some of the things he does. I do myself. I have ruined many a tech by avoiding it because it wasn't perfect, so I do have a little bit of it. I would look for a way to get people to take action here. There is something in every speech in which we want the audience to do something. In this particular speech, we need to know what you want us to do. So if Don was doing this again, he would ask us specifically to do something, such as learning more about obsessive-compulsive behavior, taking a class, reading a book, meeting people, volunteering with people with this disorder. There would be a variety of things that he could ask us to do. So it's important to us as the audience to know what it is that we're expected to do as a result. As a last-minute speech, incredibly impulsive, no it wasn't, incredibly impressive, and non-impulsive, which is very important when we're talking about obsessive-compulsive. It's a good job. Thank you so much. And I really am excited because I believe you're probably now completed your manual, which is the Competent Communicator Manual, which means that Don will be a competent communicator. And, of course, he's already competent, but he'll be officially so.
Thank you, Sheila. I agree. If you'd have rolled the cameras back 2 years ago, when Don first came up here and gave his icebreaker speech, what we saw here today was light years improvement, Don. Congratulations over what's happened over the last 2 years. Absolutely phenomenal progress. Our final evaluator for prepared speech will evaluate Darren Henderson's speech on the secret to fatherhood. It was a great secret. We've got Paul Wessels. Paul?
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to evaluate Darren Henderson's speech titled Secret of Fatherhood, and it comes from the Competent Communication Manual. Not sure which one it is, but it's to persuade with power. And the object here was to persuade, give a persuasive speech, but also use logic and emotion, bring logic and emotion into the speech. Darren definitely persuaded. His goal was to persuade, in my opinion, young men to not only become fathers, active in their sons' lives, but persuading them to do it and in a nice way, and actually gave a little couple tips on how to do it and what some of the characteristics are. And he did it in a nice, clever way. He started with a quote. He brought out the topic with a quote of fatherhood. Then he brought in a problem. He says, we're in a crisis. But he didn't get into the problem. He said, I'm not going to spare you those details. He got into the advice, and this is where the logic comes in, of what to do about it and how to become a good father. Very logical, but before he did that, he gave us a little teaser. Everybody likes a secret. He goes, I'm going to tell you the secret on how to become a good father, but he didn't tell you right away. So then he became very logical, and he went through the steps of what a good father may be, which I thought was very clever, keeping us on our seat, what's going to be the secret in the end. So that was very good. Protect your child. Teach your children. Very logical. Role model. Again, we're learning here, and he's giving examples of all that. When they ask the questions, and not only just general questions, but those top questions about God. Why do people hurt people? Being patient, and then love. So he brings in some logic, boom, 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 boom. Then he gives us the secret. And the secret's not just a generic secret. He's doing a sell job here. He's selling here. He's trying to persuade. And the secret is, basically, if you do these things, it's not only going to just help the kids. Okay? When you're selling something and you're persuading, people care about themselves. What is it going to do to you? And he's being very logical and persuasive. And, of course, it's all emotional in between all that. So he's hitting everything perfectly, and he did it in a very, very clever way. You're going to gain out of doing this. So it's not just we're making you work. We know it's all hard work. But in the end, you're going to gain from this. So it was an excellent, well thought out, persuasive speech that I think helped a lot of people. And couldn't be happier with that particular speech. With Darren, improvements, got to think of something. Maybe a little less notes, but kind of glance down a little bit. Maybe a little more emotion with some hand gestures. But what I liked about the speech was it gave practical advice, and it was very cleverly done. So excellent speech.
Thank you, Paul. We now get to segue back into our counter, word of the day, and grammarian. She will help us understand how well we've done from a grammatical perspective, our reliance on crutch words, and how we use the word of the day. Rita Ferguson.
The word of the day. I heard it used by Rick Davis about a dozen times. Carol used it. Charlie used it. Don was able to use it. And Rick Barron a couple of times also. Moving on to verbal crutches and word fillers. Carol was our first person I started to count for a couple of so's, a couple of, so I will return the lectern. Just say, I will return the lectern. Don, in your table topic, I really heard only one, but it was really very good. Ron, I'd like to commend you on no ahs or ums. In fact, you are very good at ending a sentence and starting another one with an appropriate pause and no filler. I'm looking forward to hearing you speak. I could take lessons. Eva, you had a tough question. A couple of so to me, so I would, so, but you said one word we never say. You said sorry. Don't apologize. When you're speaking, you never apologize. you apologize in other parts of your life, but not when you're speaking. Rick Davis, you mentioned about something goes nuts or whatever. We don't need the whatever. Charlie, a couple of things that I think would make your speech stronger, and because you say so a lot, and you're married to Eva, the two of you could marry up and catch each other on this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is you mentioned you have a radio program. When a sentence starts with the word so or and it's not necessary, because there are times that so is an appropriate transition. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So as my career progressed. No, as my career progressed, much stronger. You mentioned the four Adams, Payne, Patrick Henry, and in their case, they created a nation. If you didn't say the and, just that in their case, they created a nation, do you see how much stronger it is? And by eliminating some of these so's and ands, we really enhance our speech. Don, you started without any ahs and ums. We do realize you were asked to speak at the very last minute. You brought in a more ahs and ums and so's towards the end. But one of the things I'd like to mention and commend you about is you had a technical speech. Many of us were not familiar with the words and how they are used in a technical manner, and you explained them. For example, you mentioned recurrent thoughts, thoughts that come back. Intrusive, the negative effect. It was a very good way for a lot of us non-technical people to understand what word you were using, so I thank you for that. Mary, a couple of wells. A couple of two big uhs towards the end. And one word that you tend to use a lot that perhaps you could just eliminate. It's not necessary. You told Ron that you brought your books and everything. You were very prepared and everything. You don't need the and everything. Sheila, very good. 1, 2, 2. 1 excellent speaking. Paul, in your evaluation you mentioned, it's not only going to help the kids, okay? It's going to, we don't need the okay, but beyond that, no grammatical errors. Everybody's English is very good. We just have a few word fillers that we could eliminate.
Thank you, Rita. I think once you get comfortable up here at the lectern, it's hard to get you to stop speaking. And that's what the timer's role is. You may have seen out there in TV land the little colored cards come up. That's kind of the warning messages that we get up here that say, it's almost time. It's almost time. Hey, it's time. You need to stop. So we make sure that we provide our speakers with timing cards so that they know when it's time to sit back down. And today, Eva was doing that for us, and she'll give us the timers report.
Well, overall, everyone did great, as usual, with Tabletopics, because Carol zinged us today. Don was at 55 seconds, and Ron, of course, did great. You were perfect. You were at 1 minute and 16 seconds. I was at 55 seconds. It should have been more like 10. And Rick was at 53 seconds, so that was good. For the speeches, the icebreaker is typically 4 to 6 minutes, and Charlie, you were at 6:05, so that was perfect. Now, Don, I had that you were supposed to be 8 to 10 minutes. So, and you were at 6:46, but, you know, you get a complete pass because I applaud you for getting up here at the last minute. So that was perfect. And Darren, where are you? You're at 5 minutes and 50 seconds, so you were perfect. And for the evaluations, it was great. Mary, you were at 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Sheila, you were at 4 minutes and 27 seconds, but that you were perfect. And Paul was at 3 minutes and 26 seconds. So thanks, everyone.
That was my bad. Sorry. Thank you, Eva, for your timely report. I will now transition back to our Toastmaster, Rick Gable.
Thank you, Rick. Well, for those of you who are obsessive compulsive, and this was not a perfect Toastmaster meeting, but it was an excellent Toastmaster meeting. I'll turn it back to our presiding officer, Darren Henderson.
I will second Rick's comments. It was an excellent meeting. Not almost perfect, but I won't say the word perfect. I thank all of you for coming. I'd like the television audience for joining us. And with that, I will adjourn TV Toastmasters Club 9523.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well. There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease...
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.